I'm not one for noise. My name is Marina Vale, and to the world, I'm just a modest accountant living in a rundown apartment near Halton's old shipping district, where the gulls scream over rusted rooftops and the sea breeze reeks of fish and salt. No one here knows I own controlling shares in the largest maritime group in the Pacific region. No one knows I've already started quietly buying up the debt that's been eating away at my family's empire. And no one, not my parents, not my brother, knows that the woman who rides a bicycle to the local market every morning once stood at the dining table of Vale Manor, only to be told she didn't belong. My grandmother's death set me free. I remember the day I received her final letter. No teary farewell, no sentimental metaphors, just a sealed envelope, a stack of documents, and a single handwritten note on the front. If you want to know who truly loves you, give them a reason to believe you have nothing. So I did exactly that. I left behind the penthouse, the tailor-made heels, the dinner invitations engraved on cardstock. I vanished from the social calendar of Halton's elite and moved into a creaky studio apartment above a bait shop, where no one cared that I once edited shareholder reports in 6 languages. For 3 years, I let them forget me. They thrived, or so they thought. Ryder, my brother, launched a series of flashy, hollow ventures and bought himself a yacht with money borrowed from a bank I quietly owned shares in. My parents invested in real estate, parties, and every illusion that screamed relevance. They let the Vale legacy rot from the inside, and I let them. Because I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in truth. And last week, when the last wire cleared, I became the final link in every chain of debt holding their empire together. Now, in 3 days, there's going to be a party, one of those parties. A celebration for Ryder's appointment as CEO of the family company. The invite was sent to everyone. Everyone, except me. But I'll be there. Not to reclaim a seat at their table. That table was never mine. I'm coming back to show them something else. That the girl they cast out of Vale Manor 3 years ago? She never really left. She just learned how to own the house from the outside. 3 years ago, Marina stood in front of the full-length mirror in the dressing room on the 3rd floor of Vale Manor, trying on a sea green gown her mother insisted she wear. Under the glittering chandelier, the silk shimmered like a chain made of thread. The door swung open without a knock. Marina Vale, her mother, stepped in, her gaze scanning from the hemline up to the neckline with surgical precision. "That dress makes you look like a washed-up debutante," she said. Marina bit her tongue. "I don't want to attend the gala tonight." Lorena stepped closer, her smile cold as cut glass. "This isn't about what you want. Marina, the Wexleys will be there. You'll be seated next to Harlan." "Again?" Marina asked. "He's nearly a decade older than me. And a decade more valuable." Lorena snapped. "He's heir to the largest hedge fund on the East Coast. And you, what are you? Doodling your little abstract nonsense and writing reports nobody reads?" Marina turned away. "I don't want to get married for strategy." Her father, Philip Vale, appeared in the doorway, swirling brandy in his glass. His face was tired, elegant, and entirely unreadable. "This family doesn't exist to cater to your whims," he said. "You're not some free-spirited artist. You're a Vale. I want to live my life," Marina said, "on my own terms." Philip laughed. One sharp sound. "Your life? What does that even mean? Painting murals in cafes? Teaching finger painting at some community center?" Lorena chimed in. "You've had every opportunity handed to you. Marina, if your grandmother hadn't filled your head with her nonsense, you could have actually become useful." Footsteps echoed on the stairs. Her father, Ryder, appeared, holding a birthday gift box he hadn't even bothered to wrap properly. "She should be grateful she still lives here," he said, casually. "Without this family, she'd be renting some basement room in the art district and crying over brushstrokes." Marina looked at all 3 of them, her calculating mother, her stone-faced father, her smug, entitled brother, a perfect portrait of a family that once smiled in magazines. "I'm moving out," she said quietly. "Tonight." No one tried to stop her. Philip only offered one final parting shot, like a knife across the ribs. "If you walk out that door, don't come back, because we don't have room in this house for someone who chooses to fail." She didn't come back. No phone calls, no messages. The rain came light that morning. Not heavy enough to soak through a coat, but persistent, the kind that slips under collars, into cuffs, and into quiet grief. Marina stood at a distance from the casket draped in black velvet. Beneath a tall eucalyptus tree at the edge of the cemetery, the scent of damp soil, incense, and crushed roses hung in the air, the smell of endings. The others were gathered closer. Lines of well-dressed mourners stood neatly before the pulpit, whispering softly, checking their watches. The funeral of Evelyn Vale, the woman who once called Marina, the last true hope of this family, had drawn everyone but meant little to most. At the front, Philip Vale stood straight as ever, more like a host than a grieving son. Lorena, veiled and polished in a tailored black Givenchy dress, sighed at regular intervals with measured grace. Ryder showed up late, wearing designer sunglasses and clutching an overpriced coffee like it was an accessory. No one noticed Marina until she stepped forward. No one in the family greeted her. "You should stand at the back," Lorena whispered as she passed. Her voice wasn't sharp, just cold, like she was trying to save face. "People are watching." Marina didn't answer. She placed her hand gently on the edge of the polished casket, tracing the fabric with her fingers, as if to say goodbye in a language only the dead understand. "I'm here, Grandma," she murmured, "just like I promised." Philip approached, voice clipped but quiet. "Marina, this isn't the time to stir up old grievances." She turned to face him. "I'm only here to say goodbye to the one person in this family who ever truly loved me." "Don't be so dramatic," Ryder cut in, taking off his sunglasses. "She didn't leave you anything, so stop acting like the favorite." Marina looked him straight in the eye. "She left me everything you could never understand, her trust, her hope, and her legacy." Her mother gave a dry, humorless laugh. "Daydream much? The entire estate has already been arranged for Ryder to manage. Your grandmother must have lost her mind near the end." Marina said nothing. She simply looked at her mother, no anger, no fragility, just a silence sharp enough to make Lorena shift uncomfortably. Philip, standing beside them, glanced at his daughter like a man assessing a possible threat. "In any case," he said, adjusting his cufflinks, "thank you for coming. I'm sure your grandmother would appreciate your presence." "Sure?" Marina asked softly. "I meant, you fulfilled your duty." He corrected quickly, then turned away, as if afraid he'd said too much. Ryder strolled over, eyes narrowed behind smoke-tinted sunglasses. "I thought you'd cut ties with this family years ago. Back to play the dutiful granddaughter. Are we? Anyone snapping pics for the society pages? You still haven't learned how to show respect for the dead, have you?" Marina asked, eyes still fixed on the casket. Ryder smirked and took a slow sip of his coffee. "Oh, right. I forgot. You live with stray cats and retired bottle collectors now. I guess no one taught you how to behave among the upper class anymore." Marina turned to him, face calm as still water. "The upper class isn't defined by how many cars you lease or how many parties you throw. It's defined by how you treat someone who once raised you, even once." Silence fell. Far off, the minister began the final reading. Lorena adjusted the veil on her hat, leaned in once more, her voice low and razor thin. "It doesn't matter how many times you come back here. The Vale name never needed someone like you to survive. Don't think you can wedge your way into anything we've built." Marina tilted her head, smiled faintly. "Don't worry, Mother. I have no interest in stepping into anything you've built." Then she stepped back, all the way to the last row of mourners, placing a quiet, invisible distance between herself and the family who never truly saw her. No one looked back at her again. They were too busy performing grief, bowing to ritual and reputation. But Marina, she grieved through memories, through summers spent playing chess with her grandmother in the backyard, through the pages of old books passed down like treasure maps, through a love that asked for nothing in return. The drizzle thickened into steady rain as the final shovelful of earth covered the casket. And no one noticed that. Beneath the hush of the rain, Marina whispered her farewell, one meant for a single soul to hear. "I understand now, Grandma. I won't ask them to love me anymore." 3 days after the funeral, when the flowers had begun to wilt and condolences had faded into silence, Marina received a hand-delivered parcel. No return address. No law firm stamp. Just a pale blue envelope, thick, weighty paper, sealed in red wax, embossed with the image of a winged bird. She stood by the window of her worn apartment, looking out over the harbor, where cargo ships sliced silently through the waves. Turning the envelope over, she found only 3 words handwritten in violet ink, familiar as her own breath. For Marina. She opened it slowly, almost reverently. Inside was a cream-colored letter, written in fine, firm handwriting, unmistakably Evelyn Vale's. The same penmanship that had filled decades of journals. Always with a fountain pen. Always in violet ink. My dear Marina, if you are reading this, then I have already gone, and Hailton has gained yet another empty chair at tea parties no one actually enjoys. I know this family won't leave you alone. They never could, not even when they tried to cast you out. But by now, you understand, not everyone born into your bloodline deserves the title of family. You were always different, not because you rebelled, but because you dared to be yourself. That's what I loved most about you. And what they feared the most. Don't argue with them, Marina. They don't listen. They only compete to win. Instead, do the one thing they'll never expect. Take it all back, in silence. With your mind, and with a heart that cannot be shaken. I have prepared for this day. I did not leave my legacy locked away in some dusty vault or steel safe. Things easily seen are easily stolen, especially in a family like ours. Every file, every share, every transfer, every controlling directive has already been entrusted to Mr. Landon Quill, my private attorney of 27 years. I trust no one else. Not the board, not Ryder, not even your parents. But I trust you. When you read this letter, Mr. Quill will know the time has come. Go to his office, Holloway Street, room 604. You won't need to say much. Just hand him this envelope. The only one I ever sealed myself. He'll understand. Marina, remember, this is not a chance for revenge. This is a responsibility, to rebuild what must be rebuilt, before the rot collapses it all. And if anyone asks why I didn't choose them, just smile, because the only one who needs to know the truth is you. With love, without condition, Grandmother Evelyn. Marina sat still for a long time, letting the words sink deeper than any eulogy from the funeral ever could. Outside, Hailton carried on, unaware that one power had just breathed its last, and another was quietly rising from its ashes. She opened the drawer where she had placed the pale blue envelope earlier, the one she had promised not to open until the time came. The wax seal was still intact. The winged bird gleamed beneath the lamplight. That afternoon, Marina stepped into a gray stone building on Holloway Street. A modest brass plaque read, Quill and Associates, Private Counsel. Wills and Discreet Transfers. An older secretary guided her into a room paneled in dark oak, where a silver-haired man rose carefully to greet her. His handshake was slow, firm, and his eyes held no curiosity, only certainty. Miss Vale, he said, voice calm and steady, like wind through a library. I've been expecting you since before your grandmother passed. Marina said nothing. She simply opened her bag, took out the blue envelope, and placed it on the polished desk. Mr. Quill nodded slowly, as though activating a long-prepared ritual. He pressed the intercom. Lock the doors, he instructed, and cancel the rest of today's schedule. Then he turned to Marina, looking at her directly for the first time. It's time, he said, for us to rewrite everything, from the beginning. Mr. Quill moved to the bookshelf and unlocked the old brass keyhole behind it. His hand didn't tremble, not even as the lock clicked open with a sharp metallic note. The hidden safe creaked as it opened, revealing 3 ebony document boxes, each engraved with the initials E. Vale. Everything your grandmother prepared is here, he said, placing each box on the desk with careful precision. No duplicates, no digital backups, no cloud storage. She believed in paper and loyalty. Marina sat silently, gently lifting the lid of the first box. Inside were meticulously organized asset portfolios, real estate, corporate shares, intellectual property rights, offshore accounts, each marked and indexed like an architect's blueprint. She began transferring ownership 5 years ago, Mr. Quill explained, but never made it public. Every asset was fragmented through shell companies only she and I controlled. Marina flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning names both familiar and unfamiliar. Vale Maritime Group, Hailstone Property Consortium, Ryder Tech LLC. And then, deeper, entities she had never heard of, yet whose power was undeniable. A holding firm behind the very bank her father borrowed from. A real estate company that now owned the land her mother mortgaged for a luxury spa. An import company registered under Ryder's name, quietly funded by loans Evelyn had guaranteed. Marina looked up, voice low. She didn't just leave me an inheritance. She left me a weapon. Mr. Quill allowed himself a faint smile. A sharp one, but only dangerous in the hands of someone who knows what they're holding. Marina nodded once. She opened the second box. Inside were pre-signed transfer documents, waiting only for Marina's confirmation and the final legal seal. Each came with a full risk assessment, and handwritten notes in Evelyn's script. Don't activate early. Ryder must think he's winning. Let him slip on his own. Lorena will try to remortgage a third time. Don't interfere, wait for the bank to deny her. Philip believes he's untouchable, let the market teach him otherwise. Marina leaned back in her chair. It felt like reading a play, one choreographed by the very woman the family dismissed as old and irrelevant, until it was too late. Why didn't she tell me? She asked quietly. Because she wanted to see. Quill replied, whether you could stand on your own, without position, and still keep your integrity. She told me, if the girl leaves without hatred, without begging, and builds herself in silence, then she's the only one worthy of holding the knife. Marina said nothing for a long time. Then, finally, she opened the third, and smallest, box. Inside, there were no documents, only a single object, a gold pocket watch, engraved with the words, "It has always been your time, grandmother." Marina closed the lid gently, the warmth of the metal still in her palm. What now? She asked. Mr. Quill pushed a pen and paper across the desk. Now, he said, you decide, activate, or wait. Marina didn't hesitate. She signed. 7 days later, internal reports at Hailstone Private Bank confirmed. A new block of shareholders had quietly acquired majority control across 3 investment funds, all formerly aligned with Philip Vale. Ryder Tech received a notice of tax investigation for 2 years of financial irregularities. Lorena's Spa and Wellness was denied a third loan renewal. Shortly after, the property, a lakefront villa, was foreclosed by the bank. No one knew who was behind it. And that was exactly how Marina wanted it. In the walnut-paneled dining room of Vale Manor, the morning began like any other, an espresso for Philip, a celery smoothie for Lorena, and Ryder tapping absently at his phone, while flicking croissant crumbs to the little dog, curled beneath the table. Until Philip's phone rang for the third time. This time, from his lead financial advisor. What is it, Reeve? He asked, frowning but keeping his voice calm as he rose from his chair. The voice on the other end wasn't calm. I think you need to review the voting rights from yesterday's shareholders meeting. A private group just acquired full control of the third fund. They've taken the majority. Impossible, Philip murmured, pupils narrowing. No one has the leverage to touch all 3 funds. That's what we thought, until they showed proof. They started collecting positions last year. Quiet, precise, very deliberate. Philip didn't reply. His hand slackened, and the phone slid from his ear, landing on the table with a cold clack. Lorena looked up from her fashion magazine. What now? Don't tell me someone's trying to claw into Vale Maritime. Trying? Philip sat down slowly, his voice hollow as cracked stone. They've taken the helm, Lorena, and we're no longer even on the deck. A beat passed. Then Ryder looked up, uncertain. What about the bridge loan for the West Expansion project? Hailstone Private was backing that. Right then, Ryder's phone lit up, an email from the bank. He opened it. 10 seconds later, he stood so fast he knocked his orange juice across his shirt. They froze the credit line. Ryder shouted. They rejected the next disbursement. No explanation, just a note saying, change in investment strategy by controlling shareholders. Lorena gripped Philip's arm. Philip, call someone. We need to find out who's behind this. He shook his head. Slowly. There's no one left to call. And in that moment, a strange kind of silence crept over the room. The kind that descends just after you hear the faintest crack in the foundation beneath your home. Not loud, but just sharp enough to make your heart go cold. Then Ryder spoke, voice lower. Didn't Marina intern in strategic investment back in college? Both parents turned to him. She used to read financial reports faster than I could skim a summary. He added, color draining from his face. I thought she gave all that up, but what if? Lorena cut him off, though her voice had lost its usual edge. She's the one who lived off grandmother's pity money and painted cats while eating grilled cheese in a rented flat. It can't be her. Philip didn't say a word. He was still staring out the window, the same one that overlooked the front gates of Vale Manor. The same gates Marina had walked out of 3 years ago, with no one stopping her. And now, she might be the only one holding the key to open, or lock, the future of the entire Vale bloodline. Lorena, Philip said quietly, eyes fixed on the tree line. When you told her to leave, did you look into her eyes? What are you saying? I looked, he replied, and for the first time, I saw someone I couldn't control. No one said another word. Because somewhere in this city, a woman they once cast aside was pulling the strings. No shouting, no confrontation, only proof, delivered through their downfall. The 6:17 a.m. call. Marina's phone buzzed just as she was pouring hot water into her teapot. Dawn had barely touched the edge of her window. The harbor outside was still shrouded in the sleepiness of early morning. Everything was still, until the name Marina Vale lit up the screen like a ghost from another life. The last time Marina had seen that name on her phone was 3 years ago. Cold, dismissive, accompanied by a message that said, "Don't come back unless you're ready to fit this family's mold." She set the teapot down, dried her hands, and let the call ring 5 full times before answering. Marina, her mother's voice rasped, hoarse, but still straining for composure. "It's me." "Yes," Marina replied, her voice flat. I recognized it. A long silence. Then Lorena spoke again, each word like a hesitant step across cold marble. "I think it's time we talked. About the family. About everything." "What exactly is everything, Mother?" Marina asked, eyes fixed on the slow-moving cargo ships beyond the window. "About the situation. The family's going through a bit of a rough patch. Some misunderstandings, unexpected market shifts. And, her voice softened. "I've heard that you may have ties to certain investment groups behind recent moves in the market." "Oh?" Marina allowed a faint curve to her lips. "So you've heard." "Marina." This time her mother's voice cracked. Composure slipping. "The family is in real trouble. Your father, he's exhausted. Ryder, well, you know he's never been the responsible type. And me, I don't even know what to say anymore." "Try the truth," Marina said gently. "We need you," Lorena whispered. The words sounded as if she had to swallow her pride to speak them. "If there's any way, if you could speak to the lenders. Maybe negotiate an extension, or step in." Marina didn't answer. Instead, in her mind, she saw the gates of Vale Manor slamming shut behind her. Heard her father's voice echoing. "If you walk out of this house, don't come back." She remembered, vividly. "I still live in that tiny apartment. Remember?" Marina said evenly. "The one Dad called, the artist's garbage hole. Probably not the best place to stage a financial rescue." A heavy breath came through the line. "Marina, I know I was wrong. For not believing in you. For trying to force you into being someone you weren't. But now isn't the time to look back. I'm asking, as a member of this family, please help us." Marina leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes for a moment. "Family?" she repeated. "Yes," her mother said. "We're still a family." A small chime. A new message from Mr. Quill appeared on her screen. "All secured assets are now under your control. Official legal notifications will be delivered to Vale Manor by morning." Marina stared at the message. Then, calmly, she spoke into the phone. "Mother, thank you for calling. Truly, I appreciate that you finally reached out to me." She could hear the faint sigh of relief on the other end. "So, you'll help?" Marina smiled, not with joy, but with clarity. "No," she said softly, like a breeze through a locked door. "I won't help, but I will receive the family, properly." "Marina, wait." Goodbye, mother. She ended the call. No anger. No sarcasm. No need to tell them she had been behind it all. They'd find out. When the legal envelopes arrived at Vale Manor the next morning, accompanied by a simple, formal invitation, asset restructuring session, hosted by Marina Vale. The boardroom sat on the top floor of the newly completed Vale Maritime Tower, the headquarters rebuilt from what Philip once proudly called his final triumph. Now, that same place had become the stage Marina had been building, quietly, for 3 years. An oval table stretched across the glass-walled space, overlooking the full sweep of Halton Bay. This morning, the rain had just cleared. The water shimmered like brushed silver. Marina Vale sat at the head of the table. She wore a pure black suit. High collar, sharp cuffs threaded in white, no jewelry. No symbols of power other than her steady gaze. The door opened. Lorena entered first, wrapped in a charcoal gray coat. Philip followed, visibly thinner and unusually quiet. Ryder trailed behind, irritable and unsure, still clinging to his careless posture, as if all of this was merely a misunderstanding that could be swept aside. Marina, Philip said first, nodding in an attempt at civility. Please, take a seat, Marina replied, her tone neutral. An assistant closed the door behind them. No cameras, no press, no secretary taking notes. Just 4 people in a room, no masks left. No roles left to play. 3 gray folders sat neatly on the table, each marked with a name: Philip Vale, Lorena Vale, Ryder Vale. No one touched theirs. Marina looked at each of them, slowly, deliberately. There is no long agenda for today's meeting. Only one item: a full restructuring of all assets currently held under the Vale name, including, but not limited to, real estate, company shares, financial credit, and indirect investments. Lorena interrupted. This is clearly a misunderstanding. There's no need for. Marina raised a hand. Not loudly, but it cut like a blade. You had your chance to correct things 3 years ago, when you threw me out like garbage. This is not revenge. This is the only rational move left to preserve what's salvageable. Ryder shot up from his chair. Oh, here we go again, playing the martyr, acting righteous while pulling strings like a backstabbing little tyrant. Who gave you the right? The law, Marina said, eyes locked on his. And the legal authority granted to me by our grandmother. The same documents you never bothered to read, because you thought the Vale name was a permanent pass. He went quiet. Marina slid a document across the table to him. A breakdown of 13 loans registered under Ryder Tech. All bought out over the past 3 weeks by a parent firm listed under a different name, but controlled by her. Starting next week, she said, your company will be placed under special oversight. You may continue as project director, unpaid. Or you may step down and sign the resignation form. Ryder opened his mouth again. But Philip placed a hand on his arm. Sit down, he said quietly. Marina turned to her parents. Vale Manor has been mortgaged 3 times. The final loan was denied, asset value no longer qualified as collateral. I've done the math, Philip interjected. We just need to reassess. No, Marina interrupted. You don't need to calculate anything anymore. The property was acquired last week by a fund called E&R Holdings. Do you know what the E stands for? Philip said nothing. It stands for Evelyn. A metal spoon clinked against a glass. Lorena sat up straighter, for the first time, looking like someone who had no idea what to say. Marina exhaled slowly. I didn't come here to humiliate anyone, she said. I came to make it clear. The ones who once dismissed me as a shadow, now have no choice but to accept that I'm the only person left holding anything of this family together. No one responded. Morning light spilled across the glass wall, catching the edge of Marina's face, luminous, but sharp, like a blade that didn't need to be lifted to be understood. If any of you want to keep even a sliver of land, of company, of reputation, she said one final time, then read the files in front of you, carefully. Then she stood, reached for the fountain pen placed at the center of the table. Sign them, and step into this new era with me. Or don't, and walk off this board yourselves. But don't expect anyone to save a seat for those who chose to abandon the game. The meeting ended in silence. No shouting, No slammed fists on polished wood, nothing like the scene Marina had once imagined. Back when she was a young girl, standing outside Vale Manor with a fraying suitcase in hand. Just 3 people, quietly confronting themselves. Lorena was the first to sign. She didn't look at Marina. She simply tightened the sleeves of her coat, spine straight, as if to hold onto the last thread of dignity she had left. "I never thought this day would come," she murmured, "but I'd rather hold on to a piece of truth than lose everything to illusion." Ryder didn't sign. He tossed the folder onto the table, stood, and walked out. No words, no glance back. But as the door shut behind him, Marina knew. This wasn't rebellion anymore. It was a man defeated, too proud to admit it. Philip remained seated after the others had gone. He looked down at the signed papers, then up at his daughter. "You're better than I thought," he said, the first time in his life without a trace of condescension. "I only wish I hadn't had to see it," from the seat below. Marina nodded. No resentment, no triumph. Just a quiet nod, like someone gently closing the door on a war that ended long ago. 2 months later, Vale Manor was sold under a different name. Marina didn't keep it. Instead, she instructed her lawyer to redirect a portion of the proceeds to a scholarship fund. The Evelyn Vale Foundation, for children cast out by their families. But strong enough to rise anyway. Ryder vanished from the media radar. No more features in glossy magazines. No buzz around his once hyped startups. Marina didn't ask where he went. She didn't need to. Her parents moved into a smaller house, humbler, quieter. Philip occasionally emailed her, asking for quarterly financial reports. She replied with professional precision. But she never signed off with love. One afternoon, Marina returned to her old apartment by the harbor. Not out of nostalgia, only to sit by the window again, and look out at the sea. Where it had all begun. She pulled out the gold pocket watch her grandmother had left her and opened it. "It has always been your time." Marina smiled softly. Not because she'd finally won, but because she no longer needed to prove anything. She had lived, right, true, alone, and unbowed.